For some reason, Egypt often occurs in people's memories of the past. Some years ago, a young man, Nyk Turner, went to Egypt with his flute. He was interested in Egyptology and metaphysics. He felt an urge to go there and became fascinated by the tombs, the hieroglyphs, and the Egyptian Book of the Dead. He was a musician in the pop world, and later, back in England, met a girl who also had vague feelings of having lived before. As time went by, they grew to believe that they must have known each other before, in Egypt. She originally came to England from Hungary and became more and more interested in mysticism and the occult. Her name is Karina.
I've had an out-of-body experience. I know it was in Egypt. I was an old woman who was very nearing death and who had certain thoughts in her head about assessing her life. Very old woman, very nearing death. It was just 1 second I experienced of being this old woman. And I knew that I was looking back at my life, seeing whether it was worthwhile, and I knew that there was pain I've experienced in that lifetime, and a lot of joy and a lot of learning, and I had a clear conscience in that lifetime.
Now, where does Nyk Turner come into all this?
Well, I'm not sure where he comes into it. I've met him in Glastonbury in 1977. And when I met him, I felt an instantaneous recognition, an instantaneous love, which I cannot explain by just looking at a person for the very first time. You have a surge of energy in you, which is called love. And after I've met him, I couldn't remember his face. I couldn't remember the clothes he wore.
I spent a lot of time around the pyramids and the Sphinx. I felt quite a great affinity with the Sphinx. And when I was in the Great Pyramid, I had a revelation of having been there before. I think, as far as I'm concerned, that's what it's about.
And you went into the pyramid?
I went into the Great Pyramid, yeah. And I just had my flute when I went to Egypt. That was all I took with me. And I didn't have any ideas about recording or doing anything except having a holiday. I heard what a really amazing sound there was in there. And suddenly the Great Pyramid became, for me, the blueprint of what the Egyptian Book of the Dead is about. In other words, the Egyptian Book of the Dead was written as a textbook, as it were, it's like an instruction manual on how to use the Great Pyramid.
You were sitting inside there in the dark, playing a flute?
Yeah, I was sitting actually in the sarcophagus, yes.
In the sarcophagus?
Yeah, and going through my mind was the Egyptian Book of the Dead. So I created, whilst I was there, a musical interpretation of it. And when I came back to England, it seemed only natural to me, having been in a sort of theatrical rock band, to create a theatrical representation of the thing.
The Lord of Life! I am the Lord of Life. Bestowing life on inert matter solely by my sight. I exist in many forms, dwelling in my disk. You're a red-crowned, hawk-like head. My wings the universe embrace, protecting souls which are at risk. traversing millions of years in a single lifetime. Both food divine and sacrifice.
I think I was alive in ancient Egypt. I felt a very strong affinities with everything in Egypt.
Do you think you knew Karina?
I think I do, yes. I think I did, yes.
Karina's interest in the occult had led her to try to investigate her previous lives. She'd heard on the grapevine of a lady in Newcastle, Molly Moncrief, who works rather like an astrologist, preparing what she calls incarnoscopes of people. At £5 a time, these detailed reports take about a fortnight to prepare.
What did Karina do? She sent you the photograph?
She sent me the photograph, yes, and asked me to describe some of her past lives, which I did.